Hey, what's going on, RC drivers? Take a look at what we got on the workbench over there. It's a truck from HPI Racing. When is the last time we had something from HPI Racing here in the workshop? It's been way too long. And the truck over there, it is not new, but it is a really fun truck. So let's head over to the workbench and dig into the box. We have the Savage XS Flux. This is the El Camino edition with the Stars and Stripes body. And this truck is pretty cool. I've actually I don't believe I've ever reviewed one of these. I've driven them. They're insane little trucks, but I don't think I've ever had one in my collection. So I'm pretty excited to add it to the collection here at the RC Driver Workshop. But this thing is a beast. If I remember correctly, this thing is like a tank on wheels that is just insanely overpowered. In fact, it can reach up to 65 miles an hour, but this truck is really well built. It has 10 scale electronics in it. You could use 10 scale tires on there if you don't want to use the factory tires. So it's a very cool truck. 4-wheel drive, comes completely ready to run out of the box. You will need batteries for it and a charger, typical for most ready to runs nowadays. This is a powerhouse. This is going to be a lot of fun for backyard bashers and those that just want to go wild, and maybe you got a small space or, you know, running on dirt and stuff like that. It's fun for many different applications. So let's go open up the box really quick and we'll do a little unboxing here. Just pull up the tab. And this is how it comes packaged, nicely built from the factory, radio and bubble wrap. Let me pull everything out of here and we can take a closer look at the details. There it is, our Savage XS out of the box, and that El Camino body looks pretty awesome. I love the stars and stripes on there, the graphics package on the hood, the roof, everything looks awesome. That classic HPI look that just never gets old. They've always had a great look to their vehicles, and this one is obviously no exception. I mean, yes, this has been out for a while. You've probably seen it before, but every time I see it, I really do enjoy the look of this truck. All right, let me show you something really quick. This thing is like a little tank. I wish you guys could feel the weight on there, but what I wanted to show you is the size of it next to my Savage XL over here. I mean, that thing is just huge, but this still has some pretty good size to it. But let's look over some more details now and check out these tires. These are a nice all-terrain tread tire. We've got black chrome wheels on there, and they use 12mm hexes on the inside. So you can put some aftermarket wheels on there if you want to, but these will be good for general use. Check out that big bumper on the front. That will take some hits. Got the same style of bumper in the rear as well. And then it's just 4 body clips to hold the body on. We'll take that off. I already took the body clips off before. And we can check out the chassis. So it's got a twin vertical plate chassis. It is a composite chassis, but it's strong. I mean, the way they built this thing, it kind of just integrates everything into each other and just makes a solid platform. Here's where the battery goes. There's just 2 little tabs that you kind of got to flip up and out of the way here. See if I can remember how to do this. There we go. And there, the cover just slides open. Then you could access your battery. You could put a 2S pack in there and a 3S pack. Even give you a little bit of foam to you know, space it out when you do have a different size battery pack. But pretty easy to get to. And then on the other side here, this is another cover plate. There's a servo under here. That's where the motor is. But a pretty compact layout. I mean, they did a pretty good job of keeping this thing nice and balanced so it handles well. And then just really strong. I mean, there's really no flex in this chassis setup here. Let's move on to the suspension. The suspension is nice and plush on here. I did feel a little bit of air in the shocks. Maybe you could hear it squishing around. But once that emulsifies, you know, the shocks do feel pretty good, and they are a long travel shock. So, you know, you've got a lot of suspension working here for big jumps or just handling rough terrain and stuff. And these arms, these are some really oversized looking arms here. I mean, just no flex. Look at me, I'm just pushing on that thing and I don't feel any flex in that arm, which is pretty cool. Inboard here, the hinge pins are braced by aluminum plates. I like that. Just fixed upper links. I like that as well. You don't have to worry about anything moving. And then out here, we've got nice looking caster blocks and steering knuckles, universal steering knuckles. So you could swap it side to side on this in case you ever do get some spare parts. Maybe you're worried about breaking it because sometimes these tabs do break. You could swap it out from side to side, which is pretty cool. But you could just kind of see, or hopefully you could see the look of the composite plastic here. It looks like there's a high fiber content, which makes this really strong. The hinge pins are captured here with screws. It looks like we've got captured hinge pins on the bottom as well. It looks like a flathead hinge pin there. So I don't expect those things to pop out. It's pretty much the same thing going on in the rear as far as the arms and the shocks go. Nice long travel shocks. really solid arms, and then we've got some standard style hub carriers in the rear. But look, double braced up top where it meets up to the camber link there. So that's a really good setup. I do like that. All right, next up we should talk about the drivetrain, and it's got sealed differentials in there, 4-gear differentials, ball bearings of course, dog bones for the drive to the axles. Everything is metal in here because again, this is a pretty fast truck. Again, you could reach 65 miles an hour with this with a little bit of tweaking, so it's got to be strong. So we've got nice steel drive shafts, steel out drives there, and back here is where the motor, let me spin it around over here. Here is where the transmission is actually. All metal gears inside the transmission, metal motor plate as well, slipper clutch inside, so that will help any power hits to the drive line. And inside the chassis here, there are more metal dog bones to send the drive from the transmission to the front and rear gear differentials. So pretty stout setup there. And then onto the electronics. We definitely need to talk about the electronics. So inside the receiver box here, there is a receiver that is weatherproof, waterproof. We've got a high torque steering servo over here, twin crank steering inside the chassis. Just want to mention that really quick, kind of your standard setup there, fixed links for the steering. But back here, we've got the Flux system, and HPI is really well known for their Flux system. This is a 2 to 3 speed controller, 4400 kV motor. So this is fast. This is going to make this thing just rip. I mean, we even have a cage on top to protect the cooling fan that is separate from the cage of the speed controller itself. That's very cool. Even a rubber boot on the switch over here, so that's waterproof and weatherproof as well. And this truck, again, I really can't wait to go out and drive it because it's just one of those beasts. It's one of those fun small trucks that's just going to deliver tons of action. Before we go out though, let's head over here because I did want to show you the stuff that comes with it. So here is the radio system, the TF41, and pretty good radio system. I actually like this little radio. It's got your standard dials on here for the trims, and then it does come with AA batteries. I wasn't sure if it did, and it does. So all you need is a battery for the truck and a charger. Here is a little pack of support gear. We've got extra hexes in there, box wrench, body mount, even some washers and stuff like that if you have to shim the differentials. And then of course it comes with your manual, so you know exactly how to operate the vehicle, even some decals in there as well. But again, this truck is going to just be a blast. So let's head outside, find some dirt, and rip on the throttle. As you probably guessed, I took the Savage XS to the BMX track. Let's go hit the throttle on this thing. All right, guys, I got a fresh 2S pack in this truck. And I'm just gonna rip it around here in the back parking lot just so you can see the speed of this thing. A little loose in the rear, but we'll get this thing wound up. And there we go. It is quick for a 2S truck. Watch this. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Been having a blast with this truck so far, ripping it around the BMX track. We'll go over there in a second, but I want to do one more speed run here. It is very cold out. So the ground is frozen too. That's not really helping out, but here we go. Speed run. Yeah. That's fast. This thing is pretty awesome on 2S. All right, let's head over to the BMX track, do some jumps. The BMX track is pretty beat up and frozen. So I'm over here in this roller section, which isn't so bad. We'll get some air time off these jumps. And this truck works really, really well. For such a small truck, I mean, this thing is pretty planted. Can't get some big air off these rollers. Let me see. I don't want to break it just yet. The body mounts are broken on it from running it already on the BMX track, the bigger jumps. So I don't want a chance to break it. I want to get a little bit of runtime in so you can see it from my perspective here. A little bit of gear whine, not a big deal. Oh, oh, ow, 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 oh. Usually this thing lands on all four wheels. That's what I've noticed so far. The truck's really well balanced, right amount of power, little lag on the bottom end. I might play with the punch. You can adjust the speed controller. You can adjust the punch. There's a couple other things you could adjust, mostly in drag brake and brake force and stuff. But as you can see, the handling on this is really good. I just need some diff oils, I think. So they use some grease in the differentials, and before I came out here, after running it, I felt that the differentials are just way too free. The grease is spread out inside the differentials, and you know, that's a little bit of the reason why it's a little loose in the rear. All right, let's go find some bigger jumps now. All right, I like this off-camber tabletop for some reason. Kind of a lot of fun to drive, but this track is really rough. It's kicking this little truck around. Yeah, got a little air there. Again, oh. Landed on all four wheels again. This thing is taking a beating. How rough this track is. All right, let's get some air. Yeah, there we go. Nice, smooth jump. Look how well planted that thing is. It's so cold out. It's still handling really well. All right, I gotta find another bigger jump. All right, the track is so beat up that I gotta kind of make my own jumps. I'm gonna use the sides of the jumps here to launch this truck off of. Oh. I'm gonna use this berm here. Let's check this thing out. Whoa! That thing just landed on all fours, stayed there. Look at that, that was a big hit. It's like 30 degrees out. No broken plastics. Whoa. Wow. That's some pretty big hits there. It's easy to control. The throttle control on this is really good. I'm not really minding. It's got a little cog. I don't really mind that on the bottom end. But just the control of this truck on 2S is fantastic in my opinion. That BMX track was really rough. All that dirt was churned up and frozen, yet this little truck still handled it really well. I couldn't do a lot of the big jumps because the faces were just torn up and it would kind of make this truck veer a little bit. And with the freezing temperatures, I didn't want a chance breaking it. You know, cold weather does break plastics, and I just wanted to have fun with this truck. And hopefully you guys got a really good feel for it, and I had a blast with it. I had a blast with the XS when it was first released years ago. And, you know, over this past week, driving this truck multiple times, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it just handles really well right out of the box. It's really well balanced. I mean, for the most part, it would land on all four wheels when I would crash it, you know, huge tumbles, and this thing would keep on going. There are a couple broken parts that I want to tell you about a little later, but I just wanted to focus on the handling right now, and this thing jumps really smooth, especially when you're taking off of a jump, landing on the downside of a lander. I mean, this thing just kind of floats. And for its size, it's really impressive impressive on what it does. I wouldn't go big air with this thing and land on a flat lander. With this composite chassis, you could chance breaking it, especially in cold weather. So really just try to find those jumps where you could have some sort of downside landing to it, and I think you're gonna have a great time jumping this truck. You know, handling through the rough, as you saw there on the BMX track, it was really rough. It handled its own. The suspension actually seems to work pretty well. I was a little worried that there was too much air in the shocks. And maybe later on down the road, you know, when it's time to finally do maintenance, you build the shocks right. I'm sure the truck's gonna handle just as well then. But I think it's balanced. I think it just drives really well. It's nice and easy to wheel. Steering wise, the steering is very impressive in here as well. When I first turned it on, it was a little sluggish, but it kind of broke in, and the steering works really well. Plenty of torque to hold the wheels. It steers really tight in corners. So it's got plenty of steering on tap. No worries there, and no problems from the servo itself. Speed-wise, this thing is a monster on 2S. I pretty much drove it on 2S. There might have been a couple 3S clips in there during the action portion of it, but it is just fun on 2S, and I kind of really recommend just running it on 2S. It has plenty of power to do really cool jumps and tear up dirt, and you won't have to worry about breakage. When you go to 3S, maybe just reserve that for speed runs and blasting around in dirt. I wouldn't go big air with it, unless you have some good landing spots to drop this thing down on. But it is fast. I didn't speed test it, but I have speed tested this truck in the past with the optional gear on 3S, and I was able to do 64. I do remember that, so just right on the 65 line that they have listed on the box. But that's it. I mean, this is a cool truck. Durability-wise, it seems to have handled everything pretty well. The body mount's cracked on it. Both body mounts cracked in the center, and they're still holding up even in the cold weather. So maybe in warmer weather they'd be a little bit more durable. Maybe you want to remove them from the truck and boil them in some boiling water for a few minutes just to soften them up a bit so they don't break. But that was one issue. The other was the rear bumper. The rear bumper cracked, and with all the cartwheels I did, it was kind of understandable. And maybe you want to do the same thing with the bumpers as well. Throw them in some boiling water to soften them up a little bit, and they'll be good to go. As far as other tweaks or tuning or anything like that, I think I'm going to swap out the grease that's probably in the diffs for oil. I'm going to start off with 30,000 in the front and 10,000 in the rear. That's just a guess, but that's going to be my starting point for tuning it, because the rear did feel a bit loose, so I had to roll on the throttle a lot versus just punching on the throttle. And this thing wants to be punched, it wants to go. So it's a little hard to tame it. But other than that, maybe tuning the speed controller a little bit, changing the punch control on it once I do change out the diff oils, bumping that up a little bit. But other than that, guys, this truck is a blast. It's really cool to see HPI is back in action again, and they're available through Hobby Recreation Products, HRP distributing here in the US. So go to your local hobby shop. They'll be able to order stuff through HRP for you, and if you don't have a local hobby shop, you could go to HRP's website to get what you need. HPI, it's a great brand. They have some really timeless offerings. I'm really excited to see that they're under new ownership, and those owners are really going at it. They want you to have these cool vehicles. So I think we need to support them. We want HPI, and to make that happen, we need to support them. So I'm excited to see what else they have coming down the road. And if you want to see more HPI racing here on the channel, let me know in the comment section below, and maybe I could hook that up. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like. We'll see you back soon for some more RC driver videos.